There is a book that has been read by millions of people around the world, a book taught in universities, translated into nearly every language, considered one of the greatest works of literary fiction ever written. And the man who wrote it begged for it to be destroyed. That man was Franz Kafka, and the book was The Metamorphosis. But the story most people know about a man waking up as a giant insect is only the surface. Underneath it is something far darker, far more personal, and far more disturbing than any creature Kafka could have imagined. Because The Metamorphosis was not really about transformation, it was about a man who had already disappeared, long before the story began. Franz Kafka was born in 1883 in Prague, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He was the eldest son of Hermann Kafka, a man described by nearly everyone who knew him as domineering, loud, and emotionally crushing. Hermann had built himself up from poverty through sheer willpower, and he expected his son to reflect that same toughness back to him. Franz did not. Franz was quiet, sensitive, physically frail, and obsessed with writing, a pursuit his father considered utterly useless. Kafka spent most of his adult life working a soul-destroying job at an insurance company by day and writing in isolation late at night. He never married, though he was engaged multiple times. He never left home for long. He suffered from tuberculosis, anxiety, and a persistent, haunting sense that he was failing at the basic requirements of being human, of being a son, a man, a person who belonged somewhere in the world. He wrote The Metamorphosis in 1912, reportedly drafting the core of it in a single sitting that lasted through the night. He was 29 years old, and when he was done, he had written something that disturbed even him. The story is simple on its face. Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman who supports his entire family, wakes one morning to find he has been transformed into a monstrous insect. He cannot speak clearly. He cannot work. He cannot move through the world the way he once did. And slowly, gradually, his family, who depended on him entirely, begins to resent him, to fear him, and finally to wish he would simply cease to exist. And he does. He dies alone in his room, and his family feels nothing but relief. What most readers miss is that Gregor's transformation changes almost nothing about his situation. Before the metamorphosis, he was already trapped in a life he had not chosen, servicing a debt he did not create, living for the needs of others with no space for his own. He was already invisible in the ways that mattered. The insect body simply made that invisibility literal. It made it impossible to ignore. Kafka was writing about himself, not in the way that writers sometimes borrow from their lives for texture or detail, but in the way that a person writes when they have no other language for what they are feeling. Kafka felt like a burden to his family. He felt like something grotesque had taken the place of the son his father wanted. He felt that the moment he stopped being economically useful, he would be abandoned. And he was probably right. His relationship with his father was so psychologically devastating that in 1919, 7 years after writing The Metamorphosis, Kafka wrote a 100-page letter to Hermann Kafka, trying to explain what it had been like to grow up under him. The letter was never delivered. His mother refused to give it to his father. But in that letter, Kafka wrote that his father had made him feel that whatever he did was never enough, that he was constitutionally weak, that he was a disappointment by nature. He wrote it not with anger, but with a kind of exhausted clarity. The voice of a man who had spent decades trying to understand why he felt so small. The metamorphosis is what happened when that feeling found a story to live in. What makes the book so enduring is not the insect, it is the family's reaction to the insect. Because the horror Kafka understood, the horror that is still completely recognizable today, is not the fear of becoming something monstrous. It is the fear of becoming useless, of discovering that the love people have for you is conditional on what you provide. At the moment you can no longer function, you will be quietly, politely, and completely erased. Gregor's sister, Greta, starts out as his one defender. She brings him food, cleans his room, tries to understand what he needs. But as the weeks pass and the financial pressure on the family grows, she changes. She stops seeing him as her brother. She starts seeing him as the thing that is ruining their lives. And it is Greta, in the end, who says it plainly. They have to get rid of it, not him. It, that shift from him to it, is one of the most precise observations Kafka ever made about human nature. The way we can love someone, and then, slowly, without even realizing it, begin to see them as a problem to be solved. Franz Kafka died in 1924 at the age of 40 from tuberculosis complicated by starvation. The disease had affected his throat so severely that he could no longer eat. He died before most of his work was published. He had left instructions to his closest friend, Max Brod, to destroy everything. His diaries, his letters, his unfinished novels, his stories, all of it. He did not want to leave a literary legacy. He wanted to disappear completely. Max Brod did not listen. He published everything. And because of that single act of defiance, Kafka became one of the most read writers in the history of literature. There is something almost unbearable about that fact. The man who spent his life feeling like a burden, like a failed version of the son his father wanted, like a creature who had no real place in the world, became immortal. His words outlived him by a century and are still being read by people who have never heard of Prague, who have never experienced the particular cruelty of his father, but who recognize immediately in Gregor Samsa, waking up as something unrecognizable, the feeling of not fitting into the life you're supposed to be living. If you have ever felt like you were performing a version of yourself that had nothing to do with who you actually were, if you have ever sensed that the people around you loved what you could do for them more than who you were, if you have ever feared becoming useless, becoming invisible, becoming the thing no one knows how to deal with, then you have already read the Metamorphosis. You just may not have known it yet.